Hello, friends! Are you ready to explore the fascinating world of Wednesday? Released on November 23, 2022, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're bringing you all the hidden gems, stunning details, and unforgettable moments. If you enjoy this deep dive, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps our channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more exciting movie explorations. Let's jump right in and uncover the magic together. There are moments in pop culture when an old story finds new life in such a bold, unexpected way that it becomes more than just a revival, it becomes a phenomenon. That's exactly what happened on November 23, 2022, when Wednesday premiered on Netflix and pulled the world into its strange, gothic embrace. It didn't take long for this reimagining of the iconic Addams family character to cast its spell. Within a week, it broke records as the most-watched English-language show on Netflix, amassing over 341 million hours viewed globally. But these numbers aren't just statistics, they're a reflection of something deeper. Something haunting, magnetic, and strangely beautiful. Because Wednesday isn't just a series. It's an atmosphere. It's a mood. It's a labyrinthine mystery wrapped in dark humor and emotional complexity, with a heroine who stares directly into the abyss and dares it to blink first. What makes Wednesday worth a deep dive isn't just the nostalgia it evokes, or the novelty of seeing a familiar character in a new setting. It's the way it reinvents the very idea of who Wednesday Addams can be, and what she can mean in a modern world obsessed with conformity, digital facades, and performative perfection. At the heart of this spellbinding transformation is Jenna Ortega, who delivers a career-defining performance as Wednesday Addams. From the moment she steps on screen, there's no mistaking it. This isn't the deadpan little girl from the past, content to drop a punchline and walk away. Ortega's Wednesday is older, sharper, colder, but also, somehow, more human. She's not chasing laughs. She's chasing truth. Chasing blood. Chasing justice. And it's this relentless pursuit that drives the plot forward like a ticking time bomb. We meet Wednesday at her previous high school, where she enacts one of the most unforgettable opening sequences in recent TV history. After discovering her brother has been bullied, she calmly walks into the boys' locker room with two bags, one filled with piranhas. The act is gruesome, hilarious, and completely unrepentant. It gets her expelled, of course, but it also sets the tone. Wednesday is done playing nice with a world that refuses to understand her. Enter Nevermore Academy, a secluded boarding school nestled in the fog-choked outskirts of Jericho, Vermont. It's a sanctuary for outcasts, freaks, and monsters. A home for sirens, werewolves, vampires, and psychics. But even here, Wednesday doesn't quite fit in. Nevermore is a visual feast, a place where crumbling Gothic spires meet enchanted woods, and secrets lurk behind every locked door. The set design alone is enough to make you want to pause and drink it all in. But the real draw is what lies beneath, a brutal series of murders plaguing the nearby town and a mystery that only Wednesday seems capable of solving. This isn't just a whodunit, though. It's a layered intergenerational tale steeped in forgotten grudges, colonial sins, and long-buried trauma. As Wednesday begins to investigate the killings, linked to a monster known as the Hyde, she finds herself tangled in visions from the past, cryptic messages from a dead ancestor, and chilling revelations about her own parents. Her father Gomez Addams, once accused of murder, becomes a figure of suspicion and sorrow, played with a quiet, simmering charm by Luis Guzman. Morticia, portrayed by Catherine Zeta-Jones, hovers like a phantom, elegant, knowing, and hiding more than she lets on. Yet as compelling as the mystery is, it's the emotional terrain that truly elevates Wednesday. The show explores the tension between individuality and belonging, between defiance and vulnerability. This conflict comes to life in Wednesday's reluctant friendship with her roommate, Enid Sinclair, a bubbly, pastel-clad werewolf whose optimism clashes hilariously, and sometimes painfully, with Wednesday's stoic darkness. Played with irresistible charm by Emma Myers, Enid is more than a comic foil. She's a light that exposes Wednesday's shadows. Their friendship is one of the show's most authentic and evolving relationships, growing from forced proximity to genuine care in a way that never feels rushed or manufactured. Every relationship in Wednesday pulses with a similar sense of emotional electricity. Whether it's the wary alliance between Wednesday and Principal Weems, a shape-shifting headmistress portrayed by Gwendoline Christie with icy grandeur, or the flirtatious and unpredictable chemistry with Tyler Galpin, the local coffee shop barista hiding secrets of his own, every interaction peels back another layer of the story, and of Wednesday herself. Even her bond with Thing, the disembodied hand, feels richer than some full-bodied characters on other shows. Thing is expressive, loyal, and oddly heartwarming, a testament to the show's ability to make the bizarre feel beautiful. But no discussion of Wednesday would be complete without mentioning the now iconic dance scene in Episode 4. Set to the Cramps' Goo Goo Muck, the scene sees Wednesday perform a twitchy, hypnotic dance that feels like a seance. At a punk rock concert. What makes it even more remarkable is that Jenna Ortega choreographed it herself, drawing inspiration from Susie Sue, goth clubs of the 80s, and vintage horror. The moment went viral for good reason. It captures the essence of the show in one burst of raw, expressive energy. Strange, stylish, unforgettable. Behind the camera, the show bears the unmistakable fingerprints of Tim Burton, who directed the first 4 episodes and executive produced the series. Burton's love for the weird and the wonderful saturates every frame. From crooked hallways to haunted forests, the visual palette is rich with texture and shadow. But Wednesday never becomes a mere Burton showcase. It's too smart for that. Co-creators Alfred Gough and Miles Millar balance his aesthetic with tight storytelling, compelling character arcs, and dialogue that crackles with wit and melancholy. The show also finds room to comment on contemporary themes without ever feeling preachy. It touches on the dangers of mob mentality, the hypocrisy of small-town moralism, and the erasure of outcasts throughout history. The town of Jericho, with its whitewashed pilgrim statues and deep-seated prejudices, becomes a mirror to our own world, a place where the past refuses to stay buried and the present is haunted by its silence. Yet even as it unspools these heavier themes, Wednesday never loses its sense of fun. It's endlessly quotable, visually inventive, and packed with Easter eggs for eagle-eyed fans. From subtle nods to the original Charles Addams cartoons to clever reimaginings of classic characters, every detail feels crafted with care. Uncle Fester's chaotic arrival, played to perfection by Fred Armisen, is both hilarious and poignant. And Christina Ricci's return as a new character, Marilyn Thornhill, adds a metatextual layer that fans of the 1990s films will adore. But perhaps the most impressive magic trick Wednesday pulls off is making us care. Deeply. We care about Wednesday's pain and her growth. We care about Enid's struggle to transform, literally and metaphorically. We care about the legacy Morticia is trying to protect, and the dark burden Tyler is trying to hide. And by the time the season barrels toward its explosive finale, where betrayals are revealed, monsters are unleashed, and Wednesday's own life hangs in the balance, we realize we've become completely entangled in their world. It's no wonder, then, that Wednesday has already been renewed for a second season, with Jenna Ortega stepping into a producing role, promising an even darker and more personal chapter ahead. The announcement of new cast members, including Steve Buscemi and Thandai Newton, only adds to the excitement. The show has proven it's not just a one-season wonder. It's a universe in the making, rich, strange, and ready to be explored. So why did Wednesday capture the world's attention? It's more than just good timing or great marketing. It's the alchemy of story, style, and soul. It dares to be different, to celebrate the outsider, to find strength in the things we're taught to hide. It offers us a heroine who doesn't smile, doesn't apologize, and doesn't flinch from the truth, even when it hurts. And in a world that often feels as fake as a filtered selfie, that kind of honesty is revolutionary. If you haven't yet ventured into the twisted halls of Nevermore Academy, now's the time. But be warned, once you step inside, you may not want to leave. The mystery will pull you deeper. The characters will stay with you. And Wednesday Addams, sharp, strange, and singular, will become the kind of anti-hero you didn't know you needed. Stay close. There are still secrets in the shadows, and Season 2 promises to bring them into the light. Until then, we watch, we wonder, and we wait. It all begins with a stare. Cold, focused, unblinking. That stare belongs to Wednesday Addams, a gothic enigma walking the halls of Nancy Reagan High like a shadow out of time. She moves with purpose, clad in black while the world around her screams with forced color and artificial cheer. The first scene is a statement, one that refuses to whisper. We meet Wednesday in her element, the outsider, the observer, and in her mind, the only honest person in a world full of masks. When she finds out her brother Pugsley has been shoved into a locker with an apple stuffed in his mouth, Wednesday doesn't report the bullying to a teacher or talk it out. She exacts revenge in the most audacious way possible. She marches straight into the boys' locker room, unleashes a bag of piranhas into the pool during water polo practice, and watches as chaos erupts around her. One boy screams. Blood fills the water. It's violent, hilarious, and oddly cathartic. And in that single moment, we understand exactly who we're dealing with. Wednesday doesn't do idle threats. She makes statements in blood and bone. Naturally, she's expelled. But her parents, Gomez and Morticia Addams, see this not as a punishment, but an opportunity. They enroll her in Nevermore Academy, a place that once sheltered them during their youth. Nestled deep in the misty woods of Vermont, Nevermore is not your typical boarding school. It's a haven for the peculiar, the gifted, and the supernatural, outcasts who don't fit in anywhere else. Sirens, vampires, werewolves, gorgons. They walk these ancient corridors with secrets etched into every stone. From the moment Wednesday steps onto the Nevermore campus, the tone shifts. The world becomes richer, more mysterious, more dangerous. Nevermore is both sanctuary and crucible, and for someone like Wednesday, who prefers solitude over society, it's another kind of prison. She meets Principal Larissa Weems, an elegant but commanding figure with a calculating gaze and a personal history with Morticia that's not as friendly as it first appears. Gwendoline Christie plays Weems with icy precision, making her one of the show's most quietly compelling figures. Then there's Enid Sinclair, Wednesday's new roommate and the visual opposite of everything Wednesday represents. Enid is bubbly, pastel-loving, and eager to be liked. She wears glitter-like armor and hugs like it's a daily necessity. But under her peppy surface lies a werewolf who has yet to wolf out, and her insecurities about it make her surprisingly relatable. Their initial interactions are pure fire and ice, with Wednesday barely tolerating Enid's presence. But the contrast between them isn't just for laughs. It lays the groundwork for a deeper, evolving relationship that becomes one of the show's beating hearts. Soon after arriving, Wednesday witnesses something she can't explain. During a fencing match with Bianca Barkley, the queen bee of Nevermore and a powerful siren, Wednesday experiences a psychic vision, brief, jarring, and violently vivid. In it, she sees a boy named Rowan attacked by an unseen creature. This vision rattles her. It introduces us to Wednesday's emerging psychic ability, one she inherited from her mother but hasn't yet mastered. It's a hint that she's not just a sharp mind but something far more unpredictable. Rowan, a troubled and withdrawn student, quickly becomes a figure of intrigue. He warns Wednesday that she's in danger, that she doesn't belong at Nevermore, and that she will destroy the school. Moments later, he attacks her in the woods with telekinetic force, only to be mauled to death by a monstrous creature, a hulking, deformed thing with burning eyes and claws like knives. Wednesday reports what she saw, but by the time anyone arrives, Rowan is alive again. Or so it seems. This moment is the first real crack in Nevermore's facade. Someone is hiding the truth. Someone has power over what's remembered, what's erased, and what's allowed to be seen. The monster attack is covered up. Rowan is written off as sent home. But Wednesday knows something is deeply wrong. And just like that, the central mystery is born. Who, or what, is the Hyde, the creature in the woods? And why does it seem connected to her? As she begins to dig, Wednesday is reluctantly drawn into the lives of her classmates. She meets Xavier Thorpe, a brooding artist with a tragic edge and a complicated past. His father is a famous psychic, and Xavier himself has the ability to bring his paintings to life, a gift that terrifies even him. There's also Eugene, a sweet and socially awkward bee enthusiast who becomes one of Wednesday's few genuine allies. His knowledge of the forest proves crucial later on. But not all relationships are forged in camaraderie. Bianca remains a foil to Wednesday, intelligent, manipulative, and deeply aware of her social power at Nevermore. The tension between them crackles, fueled by mutual disdain and grudging respect. Bianca's siren abilities allow her to influence people with her voice, a power she's been accused of abusing, particularly when it comes to her ex-boyfriend, Xavier. As their past unfolds, so do layers of trauma and longing that make her more than just a mean girl in a siren's shell. Outside the academy, Wednesday crosses paths with Tyler Galpin, a local barista whose easy charm and underlying pain form an intriguing contrast to the more theatrical personalities at Nevermore. Tyler is the son of Sheriff Galpin, a man who openly despises Nevermore students and blames Wednesday Addams for an unsolved murder from decades ago. There's a growing connection between Tyler and Wednesday, muted, sarcastic, uncertain, but it simmers with unspoken energy. It also plants the seeds of betrayal that will come to light much later. As Wednesday's investigation deepens, she begins to uncover a tangled web of lies stretching back generations. In her visions, she sees a young woman who looks eerily like her, a distant ancestor named Goody Addams, who fought against a corrupt pilgrim named Joseph Crackstone centuries ago. Crackstone sought to destroy all outcasts and founded the town of Jericho with a purity-first ideology. Goody's spirit begins to guide Wednesday through cryptic glimpses into the past, urging her to stop the evil that still lurks in Jericho's shadows. The town itself becomes a living, breathing character. With its pilgrim world tourist trap and uncomfortable obsession with whitewashed history, Jericho feels like a relic built atop the bones of injustice. Beneath its quaint charm lies resentment toward Nevermore's freaks, and a mayor who knows more than he lets on. This clash between the school and the town, between the old world and the hidden world, fuels much of the story's tension. And yet, even as the narrative builds with death, prophecy, and secrets, Wednesday never loses its sardonic edge. Wednesday joins the school's Po Cup competition, an annual boat race filled with sabotage, drama, and just enough blood to make it interesting. She manipulates her way into competing with Enid, Eugene, and Thing, a literal disembodied hand who becomes one of her most trusted allies. Their victory isn't just a plot point, it marks the first crack in Wednesday's emotional armor. Her team. Her win. Her moment of belonging, even if she won't admit it out loud. But the darkness won't stay quiet for long. Bodies begin to pile up. Rowan is confirmed dead, and others follow in his wake. The Hyde strikes again and again, but no one knows where it comes from or how it chooses its victims. Wednesday's suspicion turns to Xavier, especially when she discovers his sketches of the creature, drawings he claims to have made from visions. Could he be the monster? Or just another piece in a much larger puzzle? Complicating matters further is the arrival of Uncle Fester, played with manic glee by Fred Armisen. Fester brings humor, danger, and unexpected clarity. He helps Wednesday break into the secret library of the Nightshade Society, a clandestine group within Nevermore that includes her own parents. There, she finds a book detailing the Hyde, revealing it to be a creature born of trauma, repressed emotion, and psychic influence. The key detail: the Hyde always has a master, someone who triggers and controls it. Suddenly, the picture shifts. It's not just about the monster, it's about the puppeteer. Someone at Nevermore is manipulating the Hyde to silence those who get too close to the truth. And as Wednesday inches closer to unmasking them, the danger mounts. Eugene is attacked. Tyler grows distant. Xavier becomes more unstable. The circle of suspects tightens, and the threads of the story begin to weave together into a noose. Through it all, Wednesday remains unrelenting. She's driven not just by curiosity, but by a fierce desire to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She alienates allies. She challenges authority. And she begins to discover that strength is not the absence of feeling, but the courage to face what you fear most, even in yourself. By the midpoint of the season, everything has shifted. What began as a simple story of a misfit in a misfit school has become a gothic, operatic thriller filled with danger, deception, and ghosts, both literal and emotional. Wednesday Addams is no longer just investigating a mystery. She's part of it, bound to it. And as the shadows grow deeper, one thing becomes terrifyingly clear. The real monster isn't just hiding in the woods. It's walking the halls, wearing a smile, holding a secret, and it knows Wednesday is getting too close. The shadow that once loomed on the edge of Nevermore now begins to stretch its fingers through every corridor, every student, every whispered secret. The second half of Wednesday doesn't just build tension, it pulls viewers into a labyrinth of betrayal, heartbreak, and transformation. Every smile hides a motive. Every glance holds suspicion. The stakes have evolved from curiosity to survival. After Eugene's brutal attack in the forest, everything changes for Wednesday. He's hospitalized, left in a coma, and the weight of responsibility falls heavily on her. She had asked him to follow a mysterious cloaked figure alone, something she can't forgive herself for. This moment is more than a plot beat. It's a moral turning point. The hardened, emotionally detached Wednesday starts to crack. And underneath the deadpan exterior, there's a flicker of something new: guilt, grief, and the terrifying possibility of loss. But Wednesday doesn't dwell. She pushes forward harder than ever. Her list of suspects grows shorter, and the trail gets darker. Xavier, whose room is now filled with disturbing sketches of the Hyde, becomes her primary target. She finds a claw, a bloody hoodie, and even a direct connection between his visions and the creature's attacks. Every piece screams that he's guilty, and when she brings this evidence to Sheriff Galpin, Xavier is arrested. But just as quickly as things begin to make sense, everything twists again. Wednesday's visions of her ancestor, Goody Addams, return, more intense, more demanding. Goody reveals that Crackstone's evil wasn't vanquished, only buried. A secret society of outcasts sealed him beneath the grounds of Nevermore, but someone is trying to resurrect him. The monster attacks were only part of the plan. The true goal is far more sinister: rebirth. And it can only happen with blood. Outcast blood. Wednesday's blood. The truth cuts deeper than any vision. Wednesday realizes the Hyde isn't working alone, it's being controlled. The puppet master is still hidden. And the closer she gets, the more the walls of Nevermore begin to close around her. Her relationship with Tyler intensifies, blossoming into something that feels almost real. Beneath his barista smile and soft-spoken pain is someone who seems to truly understand her darkness. They share a kiss, a rare moment of vulnerability for Wednesday. But vulnerability is dangerous. It's a crack in her armor. And soon, it shatters. A lead takes her to the Gates family mansion, the crumbling estate of Laurel Gates, a member of Jericho's founding family thought to have died years ago. Her entire lineage was believed extinct, wiped out in a fire and madness following Goody Adams's vengeance. But as Wednesday uncovers, Laurel is alive, and she's been hiding in plain sight. In a gut punch of a twist, Wednesday learns the truth from the last person she expected: Tyler. After confronting him with evidence that he may be the Hyde, Tyler confesses. Not as the boy she thought she loved, but as the killer he truly is. In a chilling, dreamlike sequence, Tyler reveals his transformation. His eyes blacken. His body contorts. He becomes the creature from the woods, the monster that slaughtered Rowan, savaged Eugene, and hunted with ruthless efficiency. He tells her, with venomous pride, that he enjoyed it, that he remembers every kill, and that she, in her arrogance, never saw him for what he truly was. It's a betrayal that cuts deeper than any blade. The one person who seemed to see her for who she was, saw her only as prey. And just like that, Wednesday is alone again. But she doesn't fall apart. She becomes sharper, meaner, focused. She knows now that the true villain is Laurel Gates, long thought dead, now resurrected as Miss Thornhill, the botany teacher at Nevermore. Christina Ricci, playing Thornhill, brings a sweet, gentle warmth that makes the revelation all the more disturbing. She's been playing the long game, manipulating events from the shadows, activating Tyler's Hyde form using trauma and chemicals, and eliminating those who stood in her way. Her motive: vengeance. A desire to finish what Crackstone started, the destruction of all outcasts. The final act descends into a fever dream of gothic horror. Wednesday is captured by Thornhill, strapped down, and bled to awaken Crackstone's corpse. The old pilgrim rises, undead and seething with hatred, reanimated with Wednesday's blood. He's a puritanical phantom given flesh, wielding dark magic and hatred centuries old. And he's not just back to preach, he's back to kill. But Wednesday is not so easily destroyed. After being stabbed by Crackstone and left to die, she receives a final vision from Goody Adams. It's Goody who saves her, transferring the last of her spirit into Wednesday's body to heal her wounds and give her one last chance. This spiritual bond between ancestors becomes more than plot device. It's a passing of the torch, a final affirmation of destiny. Wednesday is no longer just part of the Addams legacy. She is the legacy. And then, everything explodes. Nevermore becomes a battleground. As Crackstone sets fire to the grounds and turns his wrath on the school's students, the outcasts unite. Enid, bubbly, sweet, unshifted Enid, finally wolfs out in a glorious, violent transformation. It's a moment that's been building all season, and when it happens, it's electric. She battles the Hyde, Tyler, in a brutal primal clash under the moonlight, fangs and claws in full motion. The girl who once decorated her side of the dorm with rainbow flags now roars as a silver-furred alpha. Elsewhere, Bianca confronts Crackstone, her siren power clashing against ancient evil. Xavier, recently exonerated, joins the fight. Even Principal Weems makes a final stand, using her shape-shifting powers in a failed, but noble, attempt to outsmart Thornhill. She dies for her efforts, a death that lands like thunder. Gwendoline Christie's quiet gravitas exits the stage, but not without a mark. And in the eye of this supernatural storm stands Wednesday. She faces Crackstone with fire in her veins. There's no backup, no secret weapon. Just her, a sword, and centuries of defiance. The battle is fierce, cinematic, and emotionally charged. In the end, she outsmarts him, plunging a blade into his heart and watching as the old evil turns to ash. It's not just a physical victory, it's symbolic. The past, so carefully buried in lies and hatred, is now gone. And the future, whatever it holds, belongs to her. As the smoke clears and the ashes settle, Nevermore is changed. The academy closes for the semester, its walls scarred, its students scattered. But something else has shifted too, within Wednesday. She's still herself, sharp-tongued, skeptical, allergic to emotion, but she's no longer the solitary figure she once was. She says goodbye to Enid, and hugs her. Not with sarcasm, not with reluctance, but with something dangerously close to affection. Wednesday receives a mysterious text, photos of her, candid, taken without her knowledge. A new threat looms, and she smiles. Not out of fear, but anticipation. The story isn't over. It never is. Wednesday ends not with a final period, but with an ellipsis. The monster is dead. The master is unmasked. But evil, as always, evolves. The shadows haven't gone, they've only changed shape. And Wednesday Addams, fully transformed, fully alive in her own haunted way, is ready to face whatever darkness comes next. From the moment Wednesday Addams arrives at Nevermore Academy, there's a shift in the atmosphere. Like a storm cloud drifting into a sunny sky. Jenna Ortega embodies this force of nature with a performance that is both razor-sharp and hauntingly still. She doesn't just play Wednesday, she becomes her. Every blink is calculated, every pause loaded with unspoken disdain or dark amusement. But what makes this performance more than just a gothic caricature is what lies beneath the surface. Ortega shows us the soul of a girl raised on sarcasm and self-sufficiency, someone who uses isolation as armor but begins, reluctantly, to open herself to connection. At the beginning, Wednesday is a fortress. Her mind is sharper than any blade, and she carries herself with a clinical detachment that borders on sociopathic charm. She's the kind of person who dissects emotion rather than expresses it, who offers more eye rolls than smiles. But underneath all of that, there's curiosity and pain. We learn quickly that this isn't just about a girl who doesn't fit in, it's about a girl who's terrified of what fitting in might cost her. She rejects her family's expectations, mocks Nevermore's traditions, and pushes away anyone who gets too close. And yet, over 8 episodes, cracks begin to form. Jenna Ortega's brilliance lies in how subtly she plays these cracks. A twitch in the eye when Enid is hurt. A barely audible hitch in her voice when Eugene is attacked. A moment of stillness after her first kiss with Tyler, before everything comes crashing down. There's growth, but it never betrays the essence of who Wednesday is. She doesn't become warm. She learns that she can care without losing her edge. And then there's Enid Sinclair, her vibrant pastel-clad roommate who couldn't be more different. Played with infectious charm by Emma Myers, Enid is the heartbeat of the series. Her transformation, from awkward sidekick to werewolf warrior, is one of the most satisfying arcs in the story. At first, Enid is comic relief, all glitter and gossip, baffled by Wednesday's gloom. But Myers ensures she never becomes a punchline. Her need for acceptance, especially from her family who view her inability to wolf out as a failure, gives her emotional weight. She's not just a cheerful contrast, she's fighting her own battle to be seen. The dynamic between Wednesday and Enid becomes the soul of the show. What starts as irritation slowly morphs into reluctant admiration, and eventually, genuine affection. Their unlikely friendship anchors the chaos of the mystery, grounding the supernatural in something deeply human. When Enid finally hugs Wednesday, full, unguarded, and fierce, it lands with the weight of everything they've been through. It's not just a hug. It's a breaking of walls. A silent acknowledgement that even the darkest souls need someone to care. Tyler Galpin, portrayed by Hunter Dewin, is the smiling barista with hidden scars, and ultimately, the show's most devastating twist. At first, Tyler is a soothing presence. He's grounded, sympathetic, someone who sees past Wednesday's morbidity and offers her something resembling normalcy. But even in these early moments, Dewin plays Tyler with a certain tension, a stiffness behind the charm, a glint of something just beneath the surface. And when the truth comes out, when he reveals that he is the Hyde, the performance flips like a switch. The warmth disappears. The eyes go cold. And suddenly, Tyler is a monster not just in body, but in soul. Dewin's transformation is chilling. He delivers Tyler's confession with quiet, smiling menace. A boy who has been broken, manipulated, and reassembled as something terrifying. His betrayal isn't just shocking plot-wise, it cuts to the core of Wednesday's journey. Her one moment of emotional vulnerability, her kiss, her trust, it's all been weaponized against her. And in that reveal, Tyler becomes more than a twist. He becomes a mirror of the darkness Wednesday fears in herself. He's what she could be, if she let go of her humanity completely. Then there's Xavier Thorpe, the brooding artist with a haunted past, played with a quiet intensity by Percy Hines White. Xavier's gift, his ability to bring his drawings to life, makes him one of the more visually striking characters, but it's his emotional complexity that stands out. He's the archetype of the misunderstood loner, yet never feels cliché. His growing concern for Wednesday feels genuine, never forced. And his frustration at constantly being suspected, dismissed, or misunderstood by her adds a layer of tragic realism to their dynamic. He wants to be trusted, to be seen, but Wednesday keeps him at arm's length. Until the end, when trust becomes not just a gift, but survival. Principal Larissa Weems, brought to life with elegance and gravitas by Gwendoline Christie, is the kind of character who commands a room with a single look. She's stern, enigmatic, and deeply loyal to Nevermore. Her complicated relationship with Wednesday, part adversarial, part maternal, adds layers of intrigue. Christie plays Weems with regal control, but also a buried warmth. Her loyalty to Morticia, her disappointment in Wednesday, and her ultimate sacrifice all speak to a woman who believes in legacy, and in the cost of protecting it. Her death is quiet, sudden, and devastating, not because of how she dies, but because of what she represents. The last line of defense gone, the last adult who truly understood the stakes. We also can't overlook Miss Marilyn Thornhill, aka Laurel Gates, played by Christina Ricci, in a role dripping with irony and menace. Ricci, who once portrayed Wednesday herself, now stands as the embodiment of hidden evil. Her performance is a masterclass in subversion. Sweet, nerdy, always smiling, Thornhill is the last person you'd suspect. But once her mask falls, Ricci turns her warmth into venom. Her calm delivery, her polite tone as she details her murderous plans, make her terrifying. She's not just a villain, she's a zealot. And her calm belief that she's right is what makes her unforgettable. Eugene, the lovable beekeeper played by Musa Mostafa, brings heart and humor to the series. He's a kindred spirit to Wednesday, an outsider with strange interests, often overlooked. But his bravery, particularly in following the cloaked figure into the woods, cements him as more than comic relief. His injury is one of the season's emotional gut punches, and his return in the final episode, still bandaged, still brave, is a small but powerful victory. Bianca Barkley, portrayed with icy charisma by Joy Sunday, begins as the quintessential queen bee, the popular girl with attitude and beauty. But Wednesday smartly unravels her stereotype. As a siren, her powers allow her to manipulate others with her voice, but her arc is about reclaiming control of her own life. We see glimpses of her struggle, Her complicated relationship with her mother, her fear of being used, her need to forge her own identity. She could have remained a foil for Wednesday. Instead, she becomes an ally, a leader, and in the final battle, a hero. Other supporting players like Ajax, the shy Gorgon with a crush on Enid, and Yoko, the vampire with quiet style, help flesh out Nevermore's world. Each student, each creature, adds texture to the environment. It's a school where werewolves worry about parental disappointment, where sirens battle manipulation, and where even monsters are just teenagers trying to figure out who they are. The Addams family themselves, Morticia, Gomez, and Pugsley, appear briefly, but with impact. Catherine Zeta-Jones channels Morticia with ethereal grace, balancing elegance with maternal worry. Luis Guzman brings Gomez's theatrical heart to life, offering a softer, more grounded take than previous versions. And little Pugsley, sweet and bullied, reminds us that even in a family of darkness, kindness survives. Every performance in Wednesday feels intentional. No character exists purely for function. They each carry weight. The cast doesn't just play roles. They live them. Their chemistry is electric, especially when it clashes, like Wednesday and Enid, or Wednesday and Xavier. These aren't just characters reacting to a plot. They shape the plot with their choices, their secrets, and their growth. What makes this ensemble work so well is that even in a world filled with supernatural creatures, ancient curses, and shadowy secrets, the core conflicts remain deeply human. Insecurity, loneliness, the hunger for belonging, the fear of rejection. Whether you're a werewolf who can't shift, a siren resisting your lineage, or a girl with visions no one understands, the story is ultimately about self-acceptance, and the price we pay to get there. And at the center of it all is Wednesday Addams, a character reimagined with care and complexity. She's not just a goth icon. She's a symbol of what happens when intellect meets isolation, when curiosity meets consequence. And as she learns to balance who she is with who she might become, we watch her grow, not into something softer, but into something stronger. In a series like Wednesday, every shadow, painting, and whispered line holds more meaning than it first reveals. The show isn't just a coming-of-age mystery. It's a living puzzle box, layered with subtle references, buried clues, and cinematic nods that reward the most observant viewer. As we retrace the eerie corridors of Nevermore Academy and the twisted trails of Jericho, it becomes clear. The creators weren't just telling a story, they were building a tapestry, stitched together with homage, symbolism, and sly winks to the past. Let's begin with the very heartbeat of this reimagining, Wednesday Addams herself. The character's legacy stretches back nearly a century, and in this new incarnation, every gesture Jenna Ortega brings to the role feels steeped in history. But beyond her stoic delivery and piercing glare, there's a deeper tribute embedded right in the casting. Christina Ricci, the actress who defined Wednesday for an entire generation in the 1990s Addams Family films, returns in the series as Miss Marilyn Thornhill. It's more than just a casting coup, it's a meta-layer of storytelling. Ricci's presence is a symbolic passing of the torch, but the show uses it for irony too. The original Wednesday, now cloaked in bright colors and botany lectures, is revealed to be the villain. A delicious twist that flips nostalgia on its head. Viewers who trusted her presence are left stunned when the truth unfolds. There's also a moment in the first episode where Wednesday mentions, "I do have a very old soul." It's not just a gothic quip, it's a subtle reference to the character's age in pop culture. She's one of the oldest teen characters still being reinvented. And in the same episode, when she unleashes piranhas into the school pool to defend Pugsley, it mirrors her first appearance in The Addams Family, 1991, where Wednesday shows her loyalty through comically violent means. The show continues this through line of familial devotion disguised as menace, a nod to her origins and the character's iconic contradictions. Speaking of nods, the setting of Nevermore Academy is packed with architectural and visual Easter eggs. The name itself, Nevermore, is a direct reference to Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven. Poe is no casual decoration here. He's woven into the very mythos of the school, held up as a patron figure of outcasts and misfits. The Poe Cup, where students compete in a watery obstacle course, isn't just a fun event. It's a visual celebration of the Gothic literary tradition. Each boat theme during the race references a different Poe story, like the Pit and the Pendulum or the Telltale Heart. It's a subtle way of aligning the students not only with monstrous powers but also with tragic, poetic history. Even the stained glass window in Principal Weem's office bears a raven, tying the school's legacy back to Poe in a literal frame. Foreshadowing, too, plays a crucial role in how the series plants clues. One of the most intriguing elements is the repeated imagery of mirrors. Mirrors appear constantly. In Weem's office, in Tyler's coffee shop, in the dorms. They're not just props. They symbolize the dual identities many characters carry. Weems herself is a shapeshifter, someone who literally reflects others. Her death, following a moment of disguise, is foreshadowed every time we see her looking into or being reflected by glass. And Tyler, whose calm demeanor hides the monster inside, often has his reflection distorted by window panes and flickering light, an early hint that what we see is not who he truly is. Then there's the subtle presence of color as a narrative device. Wednesday lives in a monochrome world, her wardrobe a consistent black and white palette. Enid, her roommate, is a walking rainbow. Their shared room is split right down the middle. Wednesday's side gothic and minimal, Enid's bright and chaotic. This isn't just a stylistic choice. It visually represents the tension between conformity and individuality, chaos and control. Over time, Wednesday's emotional walls begin to lower, and Enid's side of the room slowly bleeds into hers. When Wednesday wears a formal black dress with a slight sparkle at the rave-end dance, it's a small but powerful sign of her evolution. She's still herself, but she's allowing change. And speaking of the rave-end, that entire sequence is a feast of layered detail. The dance itself, now iconic for Jenna Ortega's haunting choreography, is a direct homage to Lisa Loring, the original Wednesday from the 1960s TV series. Ortega choreographed the dance herself, including strange arm movements and shoulder jolts as a tribute to Loring's kooky moves. The music playing, Goo Goo Muck by the Cramps, is also a deep cut from a gothic punk band beloved by horror fans, another perfect alignment of tone and history. And the red paint that rains down at the end of the dance? It's a cinematic echo of Carrie, 1976, where humiliation and rage spark tragedy, a clever foreshadowing of the chaos to come. The botanical symbolism also runs deep throughout the show. Miss Thornhill's love of carnivorous plants isn't just creepy character design, it's a metaphor. She nurtures things that appear passive but are lethal. Her lectures often contain double meanings. In one scene, she explains how some plants trap their prey by luring them in with sweetness, just as she lures Wednesday with kindness before striking. Her greenhouse is filled with plants that thrive in darkness, mirroring her own secrets. And when she offers Wednesday a rare black dahlia, it's no coincidence. The Black Dahlia is also the nickname for one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history, hinting at her real obsession with death. Beyond Nevermore, Jericho hides its own secrets. The town's pilgrim history isn't just backdrop, it's fuel for the story's commentary on colonialism, prejudice, and buried truth. Joseph Crackstone, the show's Puritan villain, is a stand-in for historical figures who used religion to justify genocide. His tomb is built beneath the town like a cursed foundation. And his resurrection in the finale isn't just a climactic twist, it's a metaphor for how the past, if left unacknowledged, will rise again with violence. Even the museum tour in early episodes gives away more than it seems. Its sanitized depiction of Crackstone's founding of the town hides a sinister truth. One Wednesday begins to unravel with grim determination. The show also sneaks in visual cues that play into the mystery. In early episodes, paintings in Weem's office subtly change. One particular portrait, a figure in chains, eyes glowing, foreshadows the Hyde creature. And when Xavier paints, he's often seen drawing images of the Hyde long before he consciously realizes what he's seeing. His visions bleed into his art, another layered hint that something deep and ancestral is haunting him. And in the Nightshade Library, the murals on the walls shift ever so slightly as Wednesday investigates, an atmospheric detail that hints at the school itself being alive with secrets. Fans of classic horror and Tim Burton's filmography will also spot homages throughout. The gates of Nevermore echo Edward Scissorhands, with wrought iron shapes twisting like vines. The color grading, the wide-angle lens distortions, and even the use of misty graveyards are all trademarks of Burton's Gothic aesthetic. And the music, composed by Danny Elfman, is filled with subtle motifs from previous Burton collaborations, including Beetlejuice and Sleepy Hollow. The harpsichord used in the main theme isn't just a spooky choice. It's a musical callback to the original Addams Family television show, giving us nostalgia in audio form. Even the small details are laced with meaning. The name, Tyler, is an echo of Tyler Durden from Fight Club, another character with a hidden, violent second self. Wednesday's cello playing isn't just character building. It often matches the tone of the episode's plot. In one episode, she plays Vivaldi's Winter, a piece of music known for its chaotic energy, just as everything begins to unravel. And the Poe statue that opens the secret Nightshade lair requires the player to solve a riddle. The answer? Snap twice. A brilliant reference to the iconic Addams Family theme song, which begins with 2 signature finger snaps. Even the series finale is rich with visual callbacks. When Wednesday finally faces Crackstone, her look mirrors Morticia's flowing silhouette, a visual suggestion that she's stepping into her mother's power. Enid's transformation into a werewolf is teased for episodes, but when it finally happens, it's accompanied by a haunting howl that echoes back to earlier lines where she expresses fear of never being wolf enough. Her transformation isn't just physical, it's emotional closure. And when Eugene helps save the day with his bees, it's a nod to a small subplot that earlier seemed insignificant. Nothing in this show is random. Everything loops back. The world of Wednesday didn't just arrive fully formed. It was forged through months of creative tension, unexpected casting turns, unique artistic decisions, and a singular vision shaped by one of the most iconic directors of our time. To truly understand how this macabre and mesmerizing series came to life, we have to peel back the curtain and step into the shadows of its production. A world as curious and complex as Wednesday Addams herself. When the idea of a live-action series centered around Wednesday Addams was first floated by Netflix, it came with equal parts excitement and anxiety. The Addams Family legacy looms large, and rebooting it in any form is no small challenge. But from the start, this series wasn't designed to be a mere nostalgia play. It was meant to be a bold, stylish, and character-driven reinvention, one that could attract a new generation while honoring the oddball charm of the original. That's where Tim Burton entered the picture. Surprisingly, Burton had never directed anything Addams Family-related before, despite his entire visual and thematic language feeling perfectly aligned with the macabre sensibility of Charles Addams' original comics. In fact, Burton was once considered to direct the 1991 Addams Family movie but passed on it. For Wednesday, the opportunity to finally bring his twisted vision into the Addams universe was irresistible. He personally directed the first 4 episodes of the show, setting the tone, style, and gothic atmosphere that defined the rest of the season. His fingerprints are everywhere. From the carefully curated color palette, muted grays, blues, and shadows, to the use of practical effects where possible, Burton insisted on grounding the world of Wednesday in something tangible. Even the infamous Hyde monster, with its grotesque grin and spindly limbs, was first sketched by Burton himself. He wanted it to look like a cross between Dr. Jekyll's darker half and a children's storybook nightmare, a creature that was horrifying but oddly whimsical. Casting Wednesday Addams, however, wasn't an easy task. Dozens of actresses were considered, but Jenna Ortega ultimately won the role, and not just for her acting ability. She brought an intense discipline and haunting quietness that the producers hadn't seen in other candidates. What's astonishing is how much Ortega committed to the part. To prepare, she took fencing lessons, learned cello from scratch, and studied archival footage of goth icons and vintage Addams Family portrayals. But the most surprising twist came during filming. She contracted COVID-19 while shooting the now-famous rave-end dance scene. Ortega later revealed that she had not yet tested positive, but she was already symptomatic, aching, feverish, barely able to move. She performed the entire dance in that condition. While the ethics of the situation sparked online controversy, some fans expressing concern about safety protocols, there's no denying the result. A performance so raw and strange it became instantly iconic, going viral within days of release. Ortega also choreographed the dance herself, pulling inspiration from Susie Sue, Dennis Lavant, and Lisa Loring. She even referenced archival footage of 1980s goth club dancing to build a style that was all her own. The creative team took immense care in designing Nevermore Academy. The show was filmed primarily in Romania, utilizing castles, forests, and real historic architecture to lend authenticity. The imposing Nevermore exterior? That's Cantacuzino Castle in Bustini, Romania, a structure known for its eerie, fortress-like beauty. But while the exterior was real, many of the interiors were constructed sets. The dual-tone dorm room shared by Wednesday and Enid was an especially complex build. Every detail was carefully curated, from the taxidermy and black roses on Wednesday's side to the candy-colored explosion of pillows and rainbow lamps on Enid's. The room wasn't just a set, it was a character in itself, symbolizing the clash and eventual bonding between two opposites. Even more fascinating was how the cast built their own dynamic off-screen. Emma Myers, who played Enid, had never met Jenna Ortega before shooting. Yet their chemistry was immediate. The pair became close friends during filming, often hanging out between takes and sharing memes. This genuine friendship subtly informed their on-screen relationship, making the evolution from antagonistic roommates to fierce allies all the more believable. In fact, Myers later admitted that some of Enid's most heartfelt lines were improvised or emotionally tweaked during rehearsals with Ortega. Another surprising bit of casting trivia involves Gwendoline Christie, who played Principal Larissa Weems. Best known for her towering presence in Game of Thrones, Christie initially wasn't interested in playing another stern figure. But Burton convinced her by describing Weems as a tragic figure, an outcast who built her own empire, only to have it slowly collapse around her. Christie was allowed to design much of Weems' look, working with costume designers to craft elegant, 1950s-inspired silhouettes that made her feel glamorous and commanding. She even cited Tippi Hedren and classic Hitchcock heroines as references. This detail added a haunting dignity to Weems, who became one of the most tragic figures in the series. Costuming across the board was a massive undertaking. Colleen Atwood, a four-time Oscar-winning costume designer and frequent Burton collaborator, crafted Wednesday's signature look. The black dress with white collar? A deliberate throwback to the original comics, but with a contemporary twist. Atwood updated her wardrobe to include Gothic Victoriana, punk influences, and even Japanese street fashion nods. Enid's wardrobe, on the other hand, was a riot of textures, bright faux fur, glitter, and pastel plaids, a visual rebellion against Wednesday's aesthetic. These visual contrasts were more than just style choices, they told the story of every character. The attention to detail didn't stop at costumes. Even Thing, the disembodied hand that helps Wednesday, was treated with serious creative care. Rather than rely entirely on CGI, the team hired Romanian magician and hand actor Victor Dorobantu to play Thing in full prosthetic makeup. Dorobantu spent every scene contorted into awkward positions, often hiding behind furniture or under floor panels so only his hand would be visible. The VFX team then removed his body in post-production, but the result was a practical, physical performance that felt authentic. Thing's gestures, taps, twitches, tiny flutters, were all choreographed to express emotion. Dorobantu essentially became a silent supporting actor, and fans were amazed by how expressive a single hand could be. There were challenges along the way, of course. Romania presented beautiful scenery, but filming there during the pandemic came with strict health protocols and constant testing. Weather was another issue. Several key outdoor scenes had to be rescheduled due to sudden snow or rainstorms. The production team also had to build elaborate forest sets inside soundstages to control lighting and ensure the eerie mood remained consistent. And while Burton thrived in this atmospheric environment, his departure after directing the first half of the season created a shift in tone that later directors had to carefully balance to maintain consistency. Another behind-the-scenes twist? The Nightshade Society, the secret group of outcast students, was inspired by real secret societies at elite universities. The writers researched Yale's Skull and Bones and Harvard's Porcellian Club, then added a Gothic supernatural layer. The hidden lair beneath Nevermore, accessed by the Poe statue, was one of the most expensive sets built. It included hundreds of real books, antique furniture, and rotating panels designed for trapdoors and hidden exits. It wasn't just a backdrop, it became a place where alliances were tested, secrets revealed, and betrayals born. On the creative decision front, one of the boldest choices was to center the entire narrative around a murder mystery. Traditionally, the Addams family had never tackled a serialized plot with high stakes. But series creators Alfred Gough and Miles Millar, veterans of Smallville, wanted to evolve the mythology. They envisioned Wednesday as a mix of Harry Potter, Veronica Mars, and Nancy Drew, with Wednesday acting as both outsider and detective. They also worked hard to retain the dark humor of the Addams legacy, ensuring that each grisly moment was laced with wit. One of their guiding principles was, if Tim Burton wouldn't do it, we won't either. Among the many Easter eggs, viewers might not have noticed a portrait of Charles Addams, the original creator of the Addams family, hanging in the background of Weems' office. It's a quiet tribute to the man who started it all. And the stained glass window of a raven watching over Nevermore? A callback not only to Poe but also to the vulture that appeared in early Addams cartoons. The show wasn't without controversy. Some critics questioned whether casting a Latina actress as Wednesday but surrounding her with predominantly white antagonists, including her love interest-turned-villain, sent an unfortunate message. Others debated the depiction of colonialism through the Joseph Crackstone plotline, arguing whether the show went far enough in addressing the themes it raised. Netflix and the showrunners acknowledged the concerns and indicated they were open to deeper explorations in future seasons. Yet despite these debates, Wednesday was a runaway hit. Upon release, it shattered viewership records, quickly becoming one of Netflix's most-watched English-language shows ever. Its blend of dark humor, mystery, teen drama, and supernatural lore hit a cultural nerve. Social media exploded with memes, fan art, and dance tributes. Jenna Ortega became a household name overnight. And perhaps most importantly, Wednesday proved that even long-beloved characters could evolve, surprise, and still hold their macabre magic. In the end, the story behind Wednesday is as layered and fascinating as the series itself. It's a tale of vision, risk-taking, and meticulous craftsmanship. Every cast member, every set designer, every visual effect, each contributed to a world that feels both timeless and new. Like the Addams family themselves, the production team embraced the weird, the wild, and the wonderful, and turned it into something truly unforgettable. The end. Wednesday is a show that thrives on attention to detail. Its creators have filled every corner with secrets, some paying homage to the past, others laying track for the future. It invites viewers not just to watch, but to rewatch, to analyze, to uncover. The more you look, the more it gives. And just like the Addams family mansion, it hides its heart behind shifting walls, secret compartments, and the quiet creak of something waiting to be discovered. There's something electric about the way Wednesday unfolds, a quiet charge that builds steadily beneath the Gothic surface until it erupts in a series of meticulously crafted, emotionally resonant turning points. These moments, often subtle at first glance, ripple through the entire narrative. They aren't just for shock or spectacle. They are woven deeply into the story's fabric, shifting its tone, raising its stakes, and forcing the characters, especially Wednesday herself, to confront truths they can't ignore. To truly appreciate the full gravity of this series, we must dive into these moments not as isolated events, but as tectonic shifts in an already uneasy world. The first moment that begins to unearth Wednesday's emotional depth comes surprisingly early. It's the cello scene. In the cold light of a Nevermore evening, Wednesday perches alone on a balcony, bow in hand, slicing through the air with Vivaldi's Winter. The haunting score isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's emotional exposition without a single word. Her performance is fierce, unrestrained, defiant. It's a rebellion against the unfamiliar surroundings of Nevermore and an audible expression of Wednesday's simmering alienation. Here, music becomes her first form of emotional release, and the staging of this scene, shadows spilling over the rooftop, the camera swirling around her, lightning cracking in the distance, sets the tone for the psychological undercurrent of the show. It's a declaration. This isn't a cartoonish goth child anymore. This Wednesday has depth, rage, and a soul she keeps carefully guarded. But her icy composure begins to thaw in the most unlikely of places, her relationship with Enid. Their dorm room is the physical embodiment of duality. Black and white, darkness and light, chaos and order. What begins as comical opposition gradually becomes one of the series' most emotionally rewarding relationships. The turning point arrives in the wake of the parents' weekend. Enid's family doesn't understand her, and Wednesday's parents are hiding secrets. In a brief but weighty scene, the two girls share a rare moment of vulnerability. Enid admits she feels broken. Wednesday listens, and though she doesn't offer a comforting hug or even warmth in her voice, she stays. And in Wednesday's world, staying is everything. This moment reveals that connection doesn't have to be loud to be real. It can exist in glances, silences, and a shared understanding of what it means to be outcast by your own kin. It also foreshadows one of the most satisfying emotional payoffs in the series. The embrace between Wednesday and Enid after the final battle, when words finally give way to something raw, honest, and human. A critical moment that rewires the entire narrative comes in the reveal that Tyler, the soft-spoken barista and love interest, is the Hyde. Up until this moment, Wednesday plays with romantic tension carefully, never fully investing in love as a goal, but flirting with its possibility. Tyler represents a potential break in Wednesday's armor. He's kind, attentive, and unlike Xavier, doesn't feel like he has an agenda. But that perception shatters in a scene so calculated and brutal that it redefines the show's stakes. When Wednesday lures Tyler into a trap and he transforms before her eyes, what we're watching isn't just a monster reveal. It's emotional betrayal layered over psychological trauma. Her instinct, always razor-sharp, was right. But trusting someone and having that trust weaponized against her leaves a mark. In this moment, Wednesday's cold logic fails her. The emotional fallout lingers for the rest of the season, reshaping her methods and relationships. It's not just a twist, it's a thematic rupture, reminding us that in a world of monsters, the most dangerous ones are those that can pretend to be human. Another scene that defines the show's heart and horror in equal measure is the vision sequence where Wednesday witnesses the death of Goody Addams' village. It's filmed with a desaturated palette, slow-motion chaos, and fire swallowing everything. But more than a visual showcase, this sequence functions as a metaphysical bridge between past and present, showing how trauma reverberates through generations. Goody's suffering is not just backstory, it's Wednesday's inheritance. The genocide committed by Joseph Crackstone isn't just historical. It becomes the fuel for Wednesday's internal conflict, the fight between vengeance and justice. Her visions, increasingly intense and painful, are not convenient plot devices but reflections of a growing emotional burden she can't yet articulate. Each one chips away at her emotional isolation. And in connecting with Goody's pain, Wednesday begins, for the first time, to understand her own. One of the most powerful thematic moments arrives quietly, without monsters or murders. It's the confrontation between Wednesday and her mother, Morticia, in the greenhouse. Surrounded by blooming but poisonous flowers, they argue, not loudly, but with that delicate emotional restraint of people who love each other yet can't find the same language. Morticia, elegant and composed, confesses her own trauma from Nevermore, and the pain of watching Wednesday walk the same dark path. For a moment, the Addams mask slips. We see that even someone as poised as Morticia was once fragile. This humanizes her, and in doing so, forces Wednesday to re-evaluate her assumptions. It's a turning point that challenges generational expectations. The idea that strength must be performed, that emotion is weakness. This scene isn't just mother-daughter drama, it's legacy under interrogation. And then there's the Raven dance. Wild, strange, and completely unforgettable, this scene serves as a microcosm of the show's identity. The choice to have Wednesday move in such a jarring, idiosyncratic way, shoulders stiff, arms flailing like clockwork, is both an homage and a rebellion. It calls back to the original Wednesday, to goth subculture, and to everything that defines her as an outsider. But it's also a moment of self-expression, where she controls the space and stuns the crowd into silence. The use of the cramps goo goo muck is deliberate, raw, defiant, unapologetic. The scene doesn't just punctuate a school dance. It tears a hole in the social fabric of Nevermore, declaring that Wednesday will never conform, and yet, her refusal to do so will draw others to her like a magnet. It's style, yes, but style that reveals the very soul of the character. A pivotal, emotional climax comes when Principal Weems sacrifices herself in the final episodes. Her decision to impersonate Tyler's mother to lure out the villains ends in her death, a sudden, shocking moment that carries far more emotional weight than initially expected. Throughout the season, Weems is framed as an antagonist of sorts, a figure of authority trying to control Wednesday's chaos. But her final act reframes her completely. She dies protecting the truth, proving that her loyalty was to the students, not to preserving the institution's reputation. Gwendoline Christie's performance, icy and majestic, melts in this final turn. There's no grand speech, no lingering goodbye. Just a look, a transformation, and then an end. And in that end, a legacy. It leaves the audience rattled, not just because she dies, but because her death gives Wednesday a rare moment of stillness. She is reminded that not all who challenge her are enemies. The true finale, the confrontation with Joseph Crackstone, delivers more than action. It confronts colonial legacy, religious fanaticism, and generational revenge. Crackstone's resurrection isn't just supernatural nonsense. It's symbolic of how old hatred can return when it's buried instead of addressed. The final battle is layered. Wednesday fights not only to save her friends, but to sever the hand history still holds on the present. Her use of Goody's blade to destroy Crackstone isn't just physical, it's metaphorical. The weapon of the past becomes the tool to protect the future. And as Wednesday lies bleeding afterward, we realize that her arc has come full circle. She began as someone who rejected connection, dismissed feeling, and saw pain as a private thing to endure. Now, surrounded by people who chose to fight beside her, she bleeds not for solitude, but for something greater. And perhaps the most poignant image comes not from combat or confrontation, but from silence. In the closing moments, Enid embraces Wednesday, an act Wednesday never sought, never asked for, but finally allows. The look on her face says it all. Confusion, discomfort, and then surrender. Not to weakness, but to connection. This wordless beat encapsulates the series' emotional thesis. That being different doesn't mean being alone. That strength can wear many faces. And that even in a world of monsters, vulnerability is not defeat. These moments, woven so carefully into the narrative, aren't just plot beats. They're emotional mile markers. They reveal the cracks in Wednesday's armor, the shades of gray in Nevermore's morality, and the quiet war between tradition and transformation. Every twist, every betrayal, every flash of vision or glance across the quad carries thematic resonance. Wednesday succeeds not just because of its gothic flair or viral dances, but because it understands the emotional architecture that makes storytelling matter. From its very first frame, Wednesday is drenched in aesthetic intention. The colors, the framing, the music, every detail feels like it's been carved with a scalpel. But the final product, the immersive Gothic-laced world we all experienced, is the result of tireless behind-the-scenes craftsmanship and inspired creative choices. What appears effortless on screen was in fact born of artistic vision, rigorous experimentation, and an ensemble of passionate filmmakers and cast working in eerie harmony. When Netflix announced a series centered on Wednesday Addams, fans of the macabre and the quirky were instantly intrigued, but cautious. How could any show live up to the beloved Addams legacy while carving out its own identity? The answer came in the form of a name: Tim Burton. For years, Burton had flirted with the idea of helming an Addams Family project, and Wednesday marked his long-awaited return to directing for television. His fingerprints are all over the aesthetic DNA of the series, from the sharply angular dormitory halls of Nevermore Academy to the misty forests that bleed atmosphere from every shadow. But Burton didn't just bring visuals, he brought intention. Much of the show's unique look came from its visual composition. Cinematographer David Lanzenberg and production designer Mark Scruton worked hand in hand to create a hybrid environment. Part Victorian decay, part modern teen mystery. The walls of Nevermore were filled with esoteric oddities, subtle textures, and handcrafted props. Everything was designed to feel slightly off-kilter, as if reality had been nudged 1 degree to the left. The result is an uncanny valley of set design, beautiful but unsettling. Even the stained glass windows and dormitory bed frames tell a story. They signal a place built for outcasts and molded by secrets. Burton's influence extended beyond visuals. He directed the first 4 episodes himself, setting the tone not just in terms of color and camera movement, but in the rhythm of the dialogue and the emotional cadence of each scene. He favored practical effects where possible, pushing for old-school techniques rather than defaulting to CGI. The monster transformations, particularly the hide, were enhanced digitally, but they began with performance capture and physical prosthetics. By grounding the supernatural in the real, Burton maintained a tactile fear that permeated the show's horror elements. Then there's the wardrobe, a critical storytelling device in its own right. Costume designer Colleen Atwood, another Burton collaborator, dressed Wednesday in black and white without ever making her feel like a caricature. Atwood played with texture, structure, and silhouette to evoke Wednesday's personality. Her school uniform, stark against Enid's rainbow tones, speaks volumes without dialogue. Each outfit is its own mood, a quiet defiance of conformity. What's more impressive is how Atwood's design evolved subtly across the season. As Wednesday's emotional world deepens, so do the layers and softness in her wardrobe, reflecting her slow emotional thaw. One of the most celebrated and talked about technical feats in the show wasn't even planned in the original script. The now iconic rave-end dance scene, choreographed and performed by Jenna Ortega herself, became a viral sensation. But what viewers may not know is that Ortega choreographed the sequence with no professional help. While filming the rest of the series, battling exhaustion and even COVID-19 symptoms at the time of filming, something later confirmed in interviews. She drew inspiration from Susie Sue, goth club movements of the 80s, and even archival footage of goth kids dancing. Ortega's commitment to authenticity, paired with her deep understanding of who Wednesday is, turned a simple school dance into a defining pop culture moment. The decision to use the Cramps' Goo Goo Muck instead of a more mainstream track elevated the scene further, anchoring it in subculture and rebellion. Jenna Ortega's performance is the axis on which the entire production spins. Her preparation for the role was intense and multifaceted. She learned cello from scratch. She took fencing lessons, archery training, and worked with a dialect coach to perfect her deadpan delivery. Her portrayal of Wednesday is finely calibrated, never flat, always with a simmering storm behind the eyes. Ortega even worked with the directors to remove unnecessary blinks from her scenes, crafting Wednesday's unblinking stare that added an eerie, predator-like quality to her presence. These aren't just stylistic flourishes, they're technical decisions that create character through physical discipline. The show's sound design is another layer of its immersive quality that often goes unnoticed. Composer Danny Elfman, yet another Burton mainstay, collaborated with Chris Bacon to score the series. They blended traditional orchestral swells with eerie glockenspiel and harpsichord arrangements to create a soundscape that was both whimsical and chilling. Each location had its own musical texture. Nevermore's grandeur echoed in pipe organ motifs, while the woods surrounding the school pulsed with atonal dread. The cello, of course, became a motif not just for music, but for mood. Every time Wednesday plays, she reveals something she cannot say. The score listens for her secrets and carries them forward. Technically, one of the most challenging elements of the production was filming Thing, the disembodied hand that acts as Wednesday's companion and spy. Unlike previous iterations that used puppetry or animatronics, Wednesday employed a real actor, Victor Dorobantu, who performed the hand's movements live on set, wearing a blue suit to allow the rest of his body to be digitally removed. But it wasn't just about erasing the body. Dorobantu had to act entirely through gesture, conveying concern, sarcasm, or urgency with just flicks and flutters of his fingers. Every scene with Thing was meticulously choreographed, often involving multiple takes to ensure perfect timing with the actors and camera movements. The result is a character who becomes a scene stealer without ever speaking, all thanks to a marriage of physical performance and seamless visual effects. Filming took place primarily in Romania, chosen not only for its eerie architecture and cost efficiency but for the authenticity it brought to the setting. Cast and crew lived in Bucharest for months, often filming in remote locations that required extensive travel and night shoots. The iconic Nevermore Academy was built by transforming Cantacuzino Castle and surrounding sets, which were enhanced with digital matte paintings to add height, towers, and that familiar Burton-esque scale. Despite Romania's unpredictable weather and logistical challenges, the production team leaned into the fog, the cold, and the stark natural lighting to capture the moody tone they needed. Of course, working with Tim Burton comes with its own particular rhythm. According to cast members, Burton often pushed for longer takes and natural reactions. He encouraged improvisation in moments of emotional weight, especially between Ortega and Gwendoline Christie, Principal Weems, whose performances hinge on subtle power dynamics. The actors were given space to breathe in their roles, allowing even quiet moments to feel rich and deliberate. Burton also demanded visual symmetry. He's known for obsessing over background composition and color blocking, and many scenes were res-hot simply to perfect visual geometry, something that gives the show its cinematic sheen. Production challenges weren't just artistic, they were practical. The show was shot during the peak of pandemic restrictions. COVID-19 testing was constant, and the cast had to remain in tight bubbles. Many of the scenes that involved crowd shots, like the rave-in or town hall meetings, were filmed in smaller chunks and digitally stitched together to appear seamless. The effects team used crowd replication and clever angles to disguise the reduced extras, all while maintaining the illusion of a bustling, immersive world. Perhaps most impressively, Wednesday never lets its technical prowess overshadow its story. The effects, whether it's the grotesque transformations of the hide or the hypnotic glow of prophetic visions, always serve narrative function. When Wednesday touches someone and sees a flash of their memory, the editing tightens, the color grading shifts, and the sound warps, not just for show, but to pull us into her perspective. Visual effects supervisor Tom Turnbull and his team worked tirelessly to keep everything grounded in emotion. Monsters had weight. Magic had rules. The world of Nevermore, no matter how strange, felt lived in and logical. And then there are the subtle touches, the things you don't notice until you rewatch. The lighting in Wednesday's room changes over the episodes, subtly warming as her bond with Enid grows. The camera lingers on gargoyle statues and tarot cards long before their meaning is revealed. Foreshadowing is layered not just in the dialogue, but in the design. There are nods to classic Addams family lore in background portraits, fencing gear, and library books. Every object on screen has a story, because the crew approached each frame like a painting. In the end, Wednesday stands as a rare synthesis of old and new. It embraces traditional filmmaking, practical sets, handcrafted costumes, grounded performances, while seamlessly integrating modern effects and global streaming sensibilities. It tells a story that feels intimate yet mythic, teenage yet timeless. And behind that success lies the labor of hundreds of creators, from the on-set dressers to the post-production artists, each one committed to making the world of Wednesday Addams not just entertaining, but unforgettable. Beneath its gothic humor, supernatural creatures, and teen rivalries, Wednesday is a show brimming with layered meaning. On the surface, it's a story about a gothic girl trying to find her place in a world that sees her as too dark, too strange, too different. But peel back the mystery, the murders, and the macabre quirks, and what emerges is a sharp reflection of our world today. The themes of Wednesday don't just make the show richer, they make it feel relevant. They strike a nerve, quietly and sometimes loudly pointing to truths about identity, society, belonging, and the pressure to conform. At the heart of it all is, of course, Wednesday Addams herself. She is the embodiment of nonconformity. She doesn't try to fit in, she doesn't shrink herself for others, and she doesn't apologize for who she is. That, in itself, is a kind of radical message. In a society that often pressures people, especially women, to smile, to be agreeable, to blend in, Wednesday is a defiant force of nature. Her very existence is a challenge to norms. Her lack of emotional expressiveness isn't a lack of emotion, but a critique of how society expects emotion to be performed. Her deadpan delivery is a shield, but it's also power. She defines herself on her own terms. The series explores what it means to be an outsider. Nevermore Academy is a school for outcasts, but even within that community, there are hierarchies. There are cliques, expectations, pressures to be a certain kind of different. It's not enough to be unique, one must be palatable in their uniqueness. Wednesday rejects all of this. She exists at the margins of the margins. The show uses this layered exclusion to comment on how even spaces meant for the marginalized can replicate exclusionary systems. There's a subtle but powerful tension between visibility and assimilation. When does acceptance become erasure? The way the show builds its world reinforces this message. The town of Jericho, with its conservative, pilgrim-founded history, acts as a foil to Nevermore. It's the normie world, a sanitized, rigidly traditional space that fears what it doesn't understand. There's tension between these two communities, a microcosm of broader cultural clashes. Nevermore represents queerness, neurodivergence, immigrant identities, those who live differently. Jericho represents the status quo, the demand for conformity. And this isn't just surface-level tension. It seeps into the plot, driving the mystery and the motivations of the antagonists. The conflict is more than supernatural. It's ideological. But Wednesday doesn't stop at identity. It also interrogates legacy. Throughout the season, Wednesday wrestles with her family's history, especially her mother Morticia's legacy at Nevermore. There's a quiet but intense theme of generational expectation. What does it mean to be your parents' child when you don't want to be like them? What does it mean to inherit trauma, privilege, responsibility? Wednesday resents being compared to Morticia, yet she is constantly measured against her. In this way, the show speaks to a very real generational struggle, the desire to forge a new path while carrying the weight of family expectations. Symbols abound throughout the series, offering subtle cues to these deeper meanings. One of the most prominent is the black and white motif in Wednesday's wardrobe. It's not just an aesthetic choice, it's a visual metaphor. Wednesday sees the world in stark contrasts: truth and lies, justice and corruption, love and betrayal. But as the series unfolds, we see shades of gray seeping into her perspective. Her relationships with Enid, Xavier, and even her parents begin to complicate her worldview. The black and white becomes symbolic of her struggle to navigate moral ambiguity in a world that isn't so easily divided. The stained glass windows of Nevermore are another layer of visual storytelling. Each one tells a story, of outcasts who came before, of secrets hidden in plain sight. The broken glass in the school's greenhouse, for instance, becomes a recurring motif. It reflects how fragile safety is for those who are different. Its beauty marred by violence. And when that glass shatters during key emotional scenes, the symbolism is clear. Facades are crumbling, truths are coming to light. Even the Hyde monster, so central to the show's mystery, is more than a horror trope. It's a manifestation of repressed identity and trauma. When we learn the truth about Tyler and his transformation, it becomes clear. The Hyde isn't just a creature, it's a metaphor. It represents the rage that builds when someone is forced to hide who they are. It speaks to the monstrous things that grow in silence, in shame, in suppression. The show subtly draws parallels between Tyler's struggle and real-world issues of identity suppression, especially in communities where certain feelings or identities are demonized. Another recurring theme is the question of truth and perception. Wednesday is constantly seeking answers, pulling at threads, unraveling lies. But every time she gets close, she's faced with a new question. Whose truth matters? Whose story gets believed? This is where the show intersects with social commentary about justice, memory, and the rewriting of history. The Pilgrim founder of Jericho, Joseph Crackstone, is portrayed as a hero in the town's folklore. But the truth, as we learn, is darker. He was a genocidal fanatic who persecuted the outcasts. His legacy, sanitized and worshipped by the town, becomes a symbol of how real history is often whitewashed. This historical distortion connects deeply to real-world patterns. How colonizers are often mythologized, how systemic injustice is hidden behind narratives of tradition or progress. Crackstone's resurrection in the finale isn't just a plot twist, it's a metaphor. The past, when buried, doesn't die. It festers. And unless it's confronted honestly, it rises again. The series suggests that confronting history isn't just important, it's urgent. Wednesday's own visions add yet another symbolic layer. Her psychic ability to touch someone and see their memories ties directly into themes of empathy and trauma. It's invasive, yes, but it's also revelatory. She carries the burden of knowing what others hide. This speaks to the experience of being highly sensitive or hyper-aware in a world that often encourages numbness. Through her visions, the show comments on the emotional labor of understanding others, especially when the truth is painful. Then there's Enid. In many ways, she is the antithesis of Wednesday, colorful, bubbly, emotionally expressive. But Enid's journey is equally symbolic. Her struggle with wolfing out, being unable to transform into her werewolf form, becomes a clear metaphor for delayed self-discovery or queer identity. Her mother pressures her to undergo conversion therapy, a chillingly direct reference to real-world abuse faced by LGBTQ+ individuals. Enid's eventual transformation isn't just a superpower, it's liberation. And when she embraces her true self in the finale, it's a moment of triumph not just for her character, but for anyone who has ever felt pressured to be someone they're not. This layered intersection of identity, legacy, and acceptance runs through the ensemble. Bianca, the siren, represents another facet of identity politics. As someone whose powers manipulate people's minds, she is constantly scrutinized. Her story touches on consent, agency, and the fear of being defined by stereotypes. Even Principal Weems, a shapeshifter, lives in duality, constantly performing roles, hiding her true self in the name of order and protection. Every character, in some way, is navigating the space between self and society. The show also weaves in commentary on institutions, schools, governments, law enforcement. The police in Jericho are more interested in protecting the town's image than seeking justice. The school, despite being for outcasts, fails to protect its own students. These failures echo real-world systems where the most vulnerable often find themselves ignored or exploited. Through this lens, the mystery isn't just about a killer, it's about who gets protected, who gets blamed, and who gets forgotten. Even the humor in Wednesday serves a deeper purpose. The show uses dark comedy not to diminish pain, but to empower the characters who experience it. Wednesday's morbid one-liners are more than punchlines, they're survival tools. In a world that misunderstands her, humor becomes a weapon, a way of maintaining control. It's a subtle commentary on how marginalized people often use wit and sarcasm to navigate spaces that are hostile or alien. Culturally, Wednesday hit a nerve because it arrived at a time when people were actively seeking stories of difference. Not just surface-level diversity, but stories that explore the complexity of being othered. The show resonated with Gen Z audiences in particular because it speaks their language. Identity fluidity, found family, emotional honesty, and the desire for authenticity. It doesn't present outcasts as victims, but as heroes. It doesn't flatten identity into a stereotype, it complicates it. And in doing so, Wednesday becomes more than just entertainment. It becomes a mirror, a place where viewers can see themselves, not just in Wednesday's stoicism, but in Enid's anxiety, in Bianca's resilience, in Weem's quiet sacrifices. It's a story about not fitting in, told in a way that makes not fitting in feel powerful. All of these themes, individualism, identity, legacy, power, justice, aren't hammered in with preachy dialogue or forced monologues. They're embedded in the bones of the story. In the stained glass. In the cello notes. In the silent flick of a hand's gesture. They make Wednesday more than a mystery, more than a fantasy, more than a reboot. They make it a meditation on what it means to live truthfully in a world that's scared of truth. There's a reason Wednesday feels so hypnotic from the very first frame. Long before a single word is spoken, the show casts a spell with its visuals. That spell isn't just the product of clever writing or a strong performance. It's the result of meticulous, hauntingly precise cinematic craftsmanship. This is a world where the camera doesn't just observe, it feels. Where the lighting doesn't merely illuminate, it whispers. Where every shadow, every angle, every texture becomes a voice in the story. And that story, the eerie, dark, and deeply personal journey of Wednesday Addams, is told not just through what happens, but how it looks, sounds, and moves. Tim Burton's involvement as director of the first 4 episodes sets the tone unmistakably. His signature is present in every crooked frame and eerie corridor, yet Wednesday doesn't feel like a rehash of his previous work, it feels evolved. It's Burton's gothic vision filtered through a teen noir lens, updated for a modern audience without losing the handcrafted strangeness that defines his aesthetic. The show lives in perpetual overcast, a palette dominated by cold grays, eerie blues, and funereal blacks, but it never feels flat. Instead, the world feels soaked in mood, alive with visual contradictions, ornate and decayed, classical and contemporary, whimsical and morbid. From the opening moments at Nancy Reagan High, the camera establishes Wednesday's emotional state with stark clarity. The world she occupies is overly saturated, bright, and hostile. She's shot in isolation, often framed with harsh symmetry, reinforcing her emotional detachment from the environment. And then she unleashes piranhas in the school pool, and everything shifts. The camera goes handheld, almost shaky, capturing the sudden burst of chaos as if unrestrained emotion is finally being released. The editing here is quick and deliberate, reflecting the precision of Wednesday's vengeance and the surprise of those around her. This early scene sets a visual standard. The camera will never just show, it will express. As Wednesday arrives at Nevermore Academy, the visual language shifts dramatically. The Gothic becomes dominant. Wide shots of the school's spires echo Burton's love for Victorian grandeur. The architecture itself becomes a character, cold, mysterious, looming over students like a watchful eye. The production design here is stunningly rich. Hallways stretch like catacombs. Dorm rooms look like antique parlors preserved in amber. Even the school uniforms are color-coded with faint purples and blacks, a departure from typical prep school aesthetics, leaning into the show's outsider theme. The camera plays an essential role in guiding us through Nevermore's world. It often lingers in long takes, slowly creeping around corners, following characters with almost voyeuristic interest. There's a tension in these movements, a sense that the viewer is complicit in uncovering secrets. When Wednesday begins unraveling the mystery of the Hyde creature, the camera becomes more active, tracking, swooping, diving into the action with greater urgency. Steadicam is frequently used to follow her down labyrinthine hallways or through fog-laden woods, creating a feeling of immersive pursuit. The audience isn't just watching her investigation. They're pulled along, step by step. Lighting plays a defining role in how Wednesday evokes its tone. It borrows heavily from horror and noir traditions. High contrast, deep shadows, strategic silhouettes, but softens them with a fantastical edge. Night scenes are bathed in pale moonlight, casting silver hues across gravestones and forest paths. Interior lighting often glows with amber warmth from antique fixtures, clashing against the coolness of the exterior world. This contrast creates a duality. Nevermore is both a refuge and a trap. In the Weathervane Cafe, for instance, scenes between Wednesday and Tyler are lit more warmly, signaling a potential emotional thaw. But even then, flickering candlelight and shadowy corners hint at the deception beneath the surface. The color palette is restrained but intentional. Wednesday's world rarely strays beyond blacks, whites, grays, and muted blues. Even Enid, the vibrant werewolf roommate, is toned down visually. Her rainbow wardrobe is always just this side of subdued, more pastel than neon. This desaturation enhances contrast, not just visually but thematically. When Wednesday wears her white dress at the rave-end dance, it feels jarring, and that's the point. The absence of her usual black creates visual tension, mirroring her emotional conflict in that moment. When blood spills during the dance, its red is shockingly vivid, weaponized for visual impact. It's one of the only times the show allows true color to burst through the gloom, and it lands with brutal elegance. Editing choices reflect psychological states with striking clarity. Flashbacks and visions are presented with jump cuts, distorted sound, and flickering light, fragmented and jarring, just like the experiences themselves. When Wednesday has a psychic vision, the transition is abrupt and violent. The sound drops, replaced with a high-pitched drone, and the frame shudders into a new moment. These techniques immerse the audience into her perception. We don't just see what she sees, we feel the shock of it. It's a powerful way to depict a superna. CGI overload. The editing makes the visions tactile, physical. And speaking of sound, the auditory design of Wednesday is nothing short of masterful. Danny Elfman's score, with additional work by Chris Bacon, is essential to the show's identity. Elfman doesn't just compose music, he paints mood with every note. Wednesday's theme is delicate and macabre, a harpsichord-led melody that feels like it could belong in a haunted music box. It dances just on the edge of whimsy and dread, perfectly echoing her persona. The music rarely overpowers a scene. Instead, it wraps around it, enhancing emotion, tightening suspense, or offering irony. Sound design complements this with unnerving precision. Footsteps echo louder than they should. Doors creak in drawn-out moans. Ravens caw at exactly the wrong moment. The forest sounds alive with whispers. And in scenes of confrontation or emotional climax, the sound often pulls back entirely, creating an unnatural silence that draws the viewer's focus with almost unbearable intensity. These choices create an atmosphere that feels immersive and reactive, like the world itself is listening and watching alongside us. One of the standout stylistic choices of the show is how often the camera focuses tightly on Jenna Ortega's face. It trusts her performance, and rightly so. Her expressions are often microscopic. A raised eyebrow, a twitch of the lip, a prolonged blink, these are her emotional signatures. The camera often isolates her in symmetrical frames, positioning her as both observer and anomaly. These tight shots give viewers intimate access to her inner world, despite her character's emotionally reserved nature. In a show full of spectacle, these quiet, concentrated moments become some of the most revealing. Slow motion is used sparingly, but always effectively. During the rave-end dance, Wednesday's choreography, shot in stylized, slightly slowed beats, becomes a visual high point of the series. The camera spins and dips with her, matching her jagged, jerky movements. It's a celebration of weirdness, filmed not as comedy, but as art. This is how Wednesday elevates its tone. What could have been played for laughs is instead made beautiful, dramatic, mythic. It reclaims the strange as something powerful. Burton's influence is felt most in the set pieces and transitions between scenes. There's an old-school theatricality to it all. Camera pans reveal hidden passageways with the flair of a magician unveiling a trick. Dream sequences are constructed with expressionist flair, skewed angles, surreal lighting, fogged lenses. Even when other directors take over after Burton's episodes, the visual consistency remains strong. The design language is clear. The world of Wednesday must always feel like it's one secret away from crumbling, or revealing something profound. The show's use of practical effects over digital ones wherever possible keeps the visual texture grounded. The Hyde monster, though rendered with CGI, is supported by practical makeup and on-set reactions that make its presence feel more authentic. Stunt work, too, is handled with clarity and precision. Fight scenes avoid the modern tendency toward hyper-editing. Instead, the camera allows space to see each blow land, each movement tell its own story. There's also a deliberate pacing to the editing and scene transitions. Unlike many modern series that rush from one beat to the next, Wednesday allows moments to linger. It holds on faces, on silences, on the eerie stillness of the woods. These pauses create mood, but they also allow tension to breathe. They let viewers live in the unease, rather than simply observe it. It's a patient show visually, and that patience amplifies its impact. Symbolism, too, is delivered visually. The repeated motif of ravens, watching, circling, whispering, is never explained outright, yet always felt. They're omens, guardians, echoes of death and transformation. Their presence in the frame signals shifts in tone. Likewise, the use of mirrors, whether literal or metaphorical, underscores the show's obsession with identity and perception. Wednesday's own reflection is rarely shown directly, but when it is, it's often fractured or obscured, mirroring her fractured self. And then there's the final confrontation. As the show builds toward its climax, the visual language reaches a fever pitch. Lighting becomes starker, contrast sharper, editing more erratic. Flames lick the sky in furious oranges and reds, clashing violently with the show's typical cool palette. It feels apocalyptic, not just in plot, but in presentation. The cinematography here doesn't just depict a battle, it stages a war between visual worlds. The traditional versus the monstrous. The buried past versus the unrelenting present. By the time the final frame fades to black, viewers have not just witnessed a story unfold, they've lived inside its atmosphere. They've followed the camera through tunnels and towers, listened to whispers between notes of a cello, watched candlelight dance across a girl's pale face as she pens another sentence in her novel of vengeance. The experience is total, visual, emotional, sensory. That is the power of Wednesday's cinematic language. It isn't just a style, it's the soul of the show. A language of shadows and music, of carefully controlled chaos, of beauty found in the macabre. It tells us that weird is not a flaw, it's a lens. And through that lens, the world becomes not darker, but more vivid. The heartbeat of Wednesday doesn't just lie in its eerie visuals or twisting plotlines, it pulses most vividly through the cast. At the center of this Gothic tapestry is Jenna Ortega, whose embodiment of Wednesday Addams transcended all expectations. But her performance didn't exist in a vacuum. The chemistry she shared with her co-stars, the organic tension and warmth exchanged between characters, and the unmistakable camaraderie behind the scenes are what helped breathe life into the Addams family legacy once more. This is a series where relationships drive not just the story, but the emotional stakes, and that's no accident. It's the result of deliberate casting, instinctive performances, and off-screen bonds that seeped into every on-screen moment. Ortega's portrayal of Wednesday Addams became an instant icon, but part of what made her so compelling was how she played off the characters around her. Her dynamic with Emma Myers, who plays Enid Sinclair, is particularly striking. They are polar opposites in nearly every way. Wednesday, the stoic, death-obsessed loner. Enid, the the bubbly, color-clad werewolf struggling with her own suppressed transformation. Yet the chemistry between Ortega and Myers is electric, a kind of comedic and emotional tightrope that never loses balance. Their scenes together simmer with tension, affection, and reluctant empathy. That feeling wasn't simply crafted in the writer's room. It was born from countless shared hours, from real-life bonding between the two actresses, who often joked in interviews about their deep, sibling-like connection off-screen. Their scenes, whether exchanging awkward glances across a dorm room divided by duct tape or standing back-to-back in a climactic battle, feel authentic because the actors trusted one another. Ortega has mentioned how she and Myers would run lines together in private, try different cadences, even improvise physical gestures to make the relationship more real. Their dedication showed. Viewers didn't just root for Wednesday and Enid as roommates, they rooted for them as soulmates, as the beating heart of the show. Fans dubbed them One Claire, a ship name that exploded across social media platforms, symbolizing not only LGBTQ+ headcanon but a craving for genuine emotional connection in a world steeped in isolation. And that was only one relationship among many that sparked on-screen magic. Ortega's scenes with Gwendoline Christie, who plays Principal Larissa Weems, simmer with a more formal tension, one grounded in status and subtext. Weems, tall, poised, almost regal, hovers over the rebellious and unyielding Wednesday like a reluctant mentor. But beneath the surface, their interactions bristle with complexity. Admiration disguised as disapproval, control masking concern. In interviews, Christie shared how she approached the role as a blend of fairy tale villain and protective headmistress, drawing inspiration from Joan Crawford. Ortega matched that energy, often reacting with restrained hostility, but also subtle flickers of recognition. Together, they created a masterclass in psychological chess. One move, one raised brow at a time. The show also benefited from the presence of Luis Guzman and Catherine Zeta-Jones as Gomez and Morticia Addams, respectively. Though their screen time was limited, the family scenes had an undeniable warmth and authenticity. Guzman brought a quirky charm to Gomez, portraying him not as the suave caricature audiences might have expected, but as a tender, devoted father haunted by his past. Zeta-Jones, meanwhile, turned Morticia into a figure of serene menace and maternal mystery. The family dinner sequence in the early episodes, where Wednesday confronts her parents about her psychic inheritance, is one of the most charged moments in the series. The chemistry between the three actors crackles with generational tension. Ortega holds her own against Zeta-Jones' regal presence, matching her icy grace with a steel-eyed rebellion that feels deeply personal. Even lesser-known cast members brought an unexpected synergy. Percy Hines-White, Xavier, and Hunter Doohan, Tyler, each had distinct on-screen relationships with Ortega. Xavier's brooding artist persona contrasted with Tyler's seemingly grounded cafe boy-next-door appeal. And Ortega played both relationships with calibrated differences, detached curiosity with Xavier, reluctant vulnerability with Tyler. The fact that Tyler's arc takes a sharp, monstrous turn near the finale only deepened the emotional whiplash. Doohan, in interviews, discussed how he purposefully played Tyler's early scenes with a warmth and innocence that bordered on overcompensation, creating a sense of unease even in his kindness. That duality played beautifully opposite Ortega's controlled skepticism. Behind the scenes, the cast shared a sense of camaraderie that filtered into every interaction. Whether it was late-night dance rehearsals, intense stunt choreography, or endless takes of emotional dialogue, the stories emerging from set suggest a production team deeply immersed in its own world. One of the most beloved stories involved Jenna Ortega's now iconic dance sequence at the Rave Inn. She choreographed the entire routine herself, drawing inspiration from goth club dances from the 1980s and even watching archival footage of Suzy Sue and Lena Lavick. She filmed the dance while battling COVID-19, though she didn't know it at the time. Her commitment, her precise control over movement and rhythm, created a moment so unexpected and magnetic that it instantly went viral. The cast cheered her on off-camera during the shoot. Emma Myers reportedly called it mesmerizing in real time, and Percy Hines-White said it was the moment he knew the show would be iconic. Even the training process became a bonding experience. Ortega took cello lessons for months leading up to filming so that her musical scenes would feel authentic. That kind of commitment raised the bar for everyone. The fencing scenes between students required stunt coaching, wire work, and careful choreography. Several cast members talked about bruises, blisters, and long hours spent perfecting their footwork. But they also talked about the laughter between takes, the shared playlists, the inside jokes that made the grueling hours worth it. And then there was Tim Burton, the architect of the show's visual soul. Known for his singular style, Burton found in Wednesday a perfect canvas to evolve his aesthetic. He brought the same otherworldly elegance seen in Edward Scissorhands and Sleepy Hollow, but tailored it to a story about teenage identity and emotional depth. For many fans and critics, Wednesday marked a return to form for Burton. An alignment of theme, tone, and vision that felt more refined and self-aware than some of his recent work. His collaboration with showrunners Alfred Gough and Miles Millar resulted in a world where every hallway flicker and Ravencrow screech contributed to the mood. In many ways, the series rekindled faith in Burton's ability to shape genre storytelling for a new generation. Over time, the legacy of Wednesday only grew. It inspired fan fiction, think pieces, art exhibitions, and cosplay trends that dominated conventions worldwide. Academic circles began analyzing the show's themes of otherness, the Gothic as a metaphor for female agency, and the tension between tradition and reinvention. Courses in media studies referenced the series as a landmark in streaming-era genre television, praising its narrative layering and character complexity. Teachers and librarians reported spikes in interest in Poe, Gothic literature, and Victorian aesthetics, proof that the series was influencing not just entertainment habits, but cultural curiosity. The announcement of a second season only added to its mythos. Fans speculated endlessly about character arcs, returning villains, unresolved mysteries, and of course, the potential canonization of fan-favorite relationships. But even before new episodes were written or filmed, the impact was already cemented. Wednesday had done what few shows managed to do. It left a footprint. Not just in the digital landscape, but in the minds and imaginations of millions. Its legacy lies in its boldness, its refusal to water down the strange, its commitment to making the unlikable lovable, its ability to turn shadows into storylines. It taught a new generation that it's okay to be different, to feel out of place, to reject societal norms without apology. It reminded longtime fans that reinvention can be reverent, that legacy doesn't have to mean repetition. And most importantly, it proved that even in a world obsessed with brightness, there's still room, deep, eager, necessary room, for darkness, so long as it's told with honesty, empathy, and style.